So the more time you spend in being not efficient in a tool, the more of the creativity you lose.
This is Writers in Tech, a podcast where today's top content strategists, UX writers, and content designers share their well-kept industry secrets.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Writers in Tech, a podcast brought to you by the UX Writing Hub. My name is Yuval Keshtecher, and I'm the founder of the UX Writing Hub. And we're talking in this podcast about everything UX writing, content design, UX content. You decide how to call it. At the end of the day, we are talking about improving user experience using words. The UX Writing Hub is one of the leading platforms in the world for UX writing education. And today we have another amazing educator from our industry that I'm very excited to have. His name is Gene Kamenez, and he is the CEO and co-founder of UXcel, which is a very cool platform that Gene is going to talk about. Gene, how are you?
Hey, Yuval, thanks for introduction and so happy to be here. Yeah, doing awesome. How are you, Yuval?
I'm pretty good. Getting ready for a really big road trip, including a lot of events and meetups all over the world in Berlin, New York, and Colombia, and everything is going to be about UX writing and meeting people in real life. So I'm very excited about that because it's happening in a week from now. So I'm very excited. You also travel quite often.
Yeah, I was traveling the whole summer, was having some vacation time, first time in like
That's
2
good.
years after the COVID time. I think the whole world was on vacation this year because, we haven't seen in our activity for the users, and I've spoke with some folks, is like, hey, all this summer probably people took time to rest finally. And yeah, it's been kind of half for me like that, but other half was like working hard.
Where have you been? Which place have you did vacation in?
Sicily. My favorite is Italy, and we've been to Sicily, and I can't recommend it enough. The best food in the world.
Oh my God. I've never been there, but now I want to go. And the weather was okay, or was it really hot?
It was good. It was good. I think it was June. It was before this heat waves, and we actually had a
That's
quite
good.
cold. We had a quite cold water, but it was kind of good balance. Hot outside, chilly water. It was nice. I love the place for sure.
Amazing. Gene, so first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me. Tell me a little bit about what is UXcel and how did you started this amazing platform?
UXcel is a platform for designers to build their skills and grow their careers. And we have now learning materials, courses, and different training games and other resources to help any kind of UX related role to upskill themselves and become better. And, we talk about ourselves as like DuoLingo for design education. So, we took a little bit different approach to traditional education. And we're not a bootcamp provider. We're not like a traditional course provider. We're more like training place, like where you can come, spend 5 minutes a day, play with highly interactive lessons, super bite-sized, really, consumable and digestible. So, that's kind of at the core of UXL, highly interactive gamified learning experience.
So how did you started it?
Myself and co-founder Colin, we are both product designers, right? And we are both self-taught product designers. And I think like 2/3 of the world right now is self-taught product designers.
Yeah, me as well, by the way. I was also a self-taught because I couldn't find any program.
Exactly.
It was like in 2017, 2016, I remember I was like dropping out of college. I had some experience in graphic design and I was actively looking for, this is a cool story. So there was only like one college in Israel that taught like visual design. And I thought to myself, okay, that's where I'm going to learn because I want to have a fancy degree because back then, everybody said, hey, you must have a degree. And then I was like going to this screening day where they like told me to come. Then they told me to draw toothbrush. And I was like, hey man, I want to design websites and digital experiences and so on. So why did they tell me to draw a toothbrush? Because like they decided, because it's like old school college, that they will focus on like, okay, people that are doing visuals need to draw and paint and stuff like that. And I have like a medical problem that I can't like draw right or write in a good way. So I wasn't accepted. And then I found like alternatives online to kind of like educate myself. And so that's how I got there to like UX basically.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's especially 10, 15, 20 years ago, there was like close to zero resources around UX, UI, product design, how you name it right now. And actually, it's a funny story about like grow a toothbrush. It's still like, the generation of our parents, let's say, if you say I'm a UX, I'm a designer, whatever, can you draw me something? That's kind of thing. It's still in their head. So I think that's what all this comes from. But yeah, even now I've seen people running surveys. We ourselves run a survey to our community. Like, by the way, we have close to 140,000, users in the platform right now. And, 2/3 are still self-taught designers. 30% go into like traditional places, but 60% are still like learning with like, books, resources, online, etc., etc. And why and where initial idea of UXL was born, because in my working experience, I was communicating a lot of designers with other tech roles like, product managers, front-end developers. And so the challenge with the world being self-educated is that there is a big base and ground knowledge which is missed in this education, right? So it affects communication level, right? Just even basic things like, how do you name like a shadow, directional, whatever? How do you name this thing? So even these basics were just missed. So it affected like a good communication. And then if you go kind of expand on that, I started to notice it as well. Like there is ground rules, ground design principles, which sometimes even designers don't even understand, and not touching even accessibility and especially UX writing. And back then, like for me, it's like, hey, you're a designer, you need to write all this stuff, right? There was nothing back there, specifically educating on that. So, there was a ground level was missing, which affected a lot. And I was thinking back then is, hey, how can we help with that? So I got this idea in my head. And back then, I wanted actually to, build like a personal brand and Instagram and all this stuff. And I was exploring all the techniques. And, that's probably why this idea of interactive learning and, bite-sized learning appeared, because I was kind of into this mode of social networks. I was thinking, okay, I have this idea and I have this problem. And how can I match it where the people spend time right now, which is, Instagram, scrolling feed, pretty small amount of attention. You basically scroll feed, you have like 1 or 2 seconds to, catch somebody's attention, right? So that's how, the first video lessons and, we came up. So like the first version of UXL, let's say, it was named UX War back there. A little bit nerdy name though. And so the first version was like an A/B practice, basically timed to 3 seconds, and you need to make a choice, like which one is correct. It was super simple. So it was like a first test and way to validate idea. Like from day one, we've talked and received a lot of feedback. Hey, it doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. It's too short, 3 seconds. I don't even understand. So, expanded. So
I remember that. It was like, it was exploding on Instagram, right? Like many interactions, exactly. A lot of followers, right?
Exactly. Like I think in 1.5-2 months, we got 40,000 followers with like $0 spent on advertisement. And in 6 months, we got 100,000 followers. Yeah. And, that's why, we thought so that back then, after 2 months, basically running this experiment on Instagram, I met my future co-founder. We start bouncing around ideas. And he's kind of, product designer. And, we start to bounce around the idea. How can we productize that? And so that's, eventually turned out to be like a little beta, which we, launched a wait list, which first, people who wanted to get in right early. We launched a like beta version of the first UXL, app. And that's, where we got interest from our investor from our circles. And, we got a seed round basically. And that would allow us to get a team and start building the whole app and how you see it right now. So we've been basically from 2020, we started doing that.
That's amazing. How many people in your team right now?
Close to 20. We are 17, plus we have a few contractors. And expanding a few other members in the next couple of months.
That's awesome, man. All right. So UXL, I like to look at it as like the DuoLingo for UX education. It's like interesting business module, interesting educational platform. So my question to you as like a UX educator, what kind of challenges people are having when they want to get into UX? So I know that we have many listeners that want to start working UX, or maybe they already work in UX, but what do they need to know right now? Because they want to find a job, they want to work in the field, they want to be the best versions of themselves. So what kind of things usually people overlook, and what people should focus right now if, they want to go on this as fast as possible to work in the industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't feel like, I have a, super confident answer on that. I have my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, definitely like it depends. So like you mentioned in the beginning, somebody needed, like a formal education, right? You went to the university, right, or college just because you tried to get this diploma or something. And it is still valid, let's say, for United States, for example. That's what I see. The credentials from some places matters, right? For them, because it helps a lot. There is a lot of competition, and it also helps you to stand out. So that's one thing. But on a side note, kind of, like if we're talking remote, and we are a global platform as UXcel, right? And I think like UX Writing Hub is also available for anybody in the world. So that's kind of the future of education, how I see it. So you like, no matter where you are, you can get in and, you can start educating yourself if you passionate enough about the topic. So yeah, like there is tons of resources out there. The biggest challenge is structure, right? So where do you start? How do you proceed? What to do next? So fortunately, there is tons of resources out there. Unfortunately, they are still not perfectly structured. So, that's, what we're trying also to achieve in UXcel, providing like a kind of, we recently introduced learning paths. So we kind of trying to combine some of the set of materials for certain role, and it is still not like super well structured. So I would say it is the biggest challenge. So trying to look up like, and not, I would say, overlearn some of the topics if you don't need it. Like if you're just getting started, or if you transition, and especially if you transitioning from graphic design, right? You have a huge boost on the visual side of things. So the way to get in for you from graphic design is the easiest one would be from UI design, become UI designer, and just then transition into more UX topics.
What was your first real work as a designer after educating yourself?
After educating yourself, it's a big word because, and this is the biggest advice I can give anybody, like be a lifelong learners. So I don't have like a stop somewhere in my life when I stopped educating myself. So this is kind of hard for me to say, like after educating myself. It is constant practice. For me, it was like constant practice and doing like quite shitty work in the beginning, and then you just improve, right? So I think that's one of the only ways to quickly learn something. You just don't afraid and just go do it, right? So that's was my way. I was like, since like in your situation, right? There was not a lot of resources for me, and I think my first book on UI design was when Apple iOS came, like first iPhone came to life, and I decided, okay, I want to be a mobile designer. I got like I think it was kind of standard UI guidelines of the Apple, released by Apple, whatever. So, and back then, I'm not a native English speaker. For me, it was like two tasks, like learn English and learn all this stuff. So yeah, I started from that.
Did you use Photoshop for it?
Like CS, I'm a Photoshop user from Photoshop CS5 or CS6, and then like.
Wow, I think so too. I think I'm the same. It's like since 2000 and not a lot, like 2002, I believe, 2003.
I mean, no, I
good time in Photoshop,
exactly.
man.
I think my first years was 2005-ish, and I actually started from creating like posters for parties, etc., in my university in Photoshop.
That's good. I did also posters for restaurants in Tel Aviv, also for parties, by the way, and also menus and stuff. And I got so many back and forth. Like people say, like, you're not aligned. I was like the worst designer. I was like trying to kill it, but I didn't nail it in the first few projects.
Oh,
that's for
of
sure.
course. And you shouldn't like expect from yourself something like that, right? It is.
But you're a child.
Exactly.
We were children.
Exactly. Yeah, like I remember like creating a bunch of logos. I don't know how many logos and icons I end up creating. Like this meme of make the logo bigger, I feel it, like that's has been around. So yeah, just self-educating and like getting my first job, my first check was $50. That's my first earning as like UI designer, if you put aside all these posters. And it was on a freelancer.com. I think it's Australian kind of freelancing platform.
I think it's Upwork now. I think
No,
so.
so there was
Maybe I'm wrong.
Elance and Odesk, and they merged to Upwork, but freelance is separate.
Okay.
Yeah, I also had
I
a
see.
Odesk
Okay.
account back then. So yeah, just freelancing for first 3-5 years, and I don't know, like practice is the biggest because yes, you learn, you continuously learn, you continue to get resources. Now, amazingly, you can read the article. There's tons of stuff you can get, like in specific education. Let's say you exploring yourself, you like UX writing, right? You can get now to UX writing hub. Like back then, there was nothing like that. So it is great, but the biggest thing is just practice, right? So like go and practice. In my 3 to 4 years of freelancing, I don't know, I did like 70 apps projects, like UI, UX, design.
Wow.
It was, just like a lot.
It is a lot. And I really like your tip, which is like practice by doing. And also,
Yeah.
you have projects that help you to exercise, to practice, to be better. I remember like when I started in UX, it was like, I even like when I didn't have even projects because at first nobody know about the fact that I'm doing it and I didn't have experience. I was just like mocking websites, like frame by frame, just to practice the design tool because I did a transition from Photoshop to Sketch. And I didn't know how to use it. It was quite intuitive and fun, to be honest, to do the transition because Photoshop is like such a heavy tool, and we had to do only like screen by screen, and every screen was a PSD file, and we had to export and slice them.
I even wrote some scripts in Photoshop to slice the screen, so you
to export automatically.
Yeah, damn it.
Yeah, man, those were not the days, definitely. And then transitioning to Sketch, and I remember, okay, so now I need to learn this new tool, which is quite similar to Figma. So if anyone is listening to us and they want to learn Figma, which is most people right now, Sketch was quite similar. So focusing on the shortcuts and trying to focus on being efficient within the tool. I feel like 80% of, not 80%, 50% is like design foundations, compositions, grid systems, and so on. Other 50%, efficiency in the tool, like building reusable components, using shortcuts, renaming stuff so you could find it quickly, reusable assets. That stuff takes a lot of practice, man. You can't do it just like that. You need to fucking practice.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, the Sketch was as well, like it was amazing transition. I picked it up in 3 days.
Yeah.
Because I was I was sick from Photoshop. It was super slow. Your file, waited like gigabytes, end up waiting gigabytes. Because of that, they were slow. And there was all these filters, all this noise. I mean, it's for photographers and for visual, folks who can like make shiny, beautiful pictures, but not UI design. But to your point of, being efficient. So how I see it, I was always trying to, and I was looking for resources, like trying to learn the shortcuts, trying to, be as efficient as possible, because how I see it, the tool is the barrier for your creativity. So the more time you spend in being not efficient in a tool, the more of the creativity you lose. So like practice and become like, master of the tool so it doesn't bother you and doesn't distract you from your actual task of designing and thinking about the experience. Instead of thinking, okay, hey, where do I need to, like, where is this filter? Where is this setting or whatever? This is need to be automatic. This is just like, this is how your brain works, The connection should be so instant, it doesn't even takes your mental effort anymore. So that's, I think for your point, it's super important to just practice. And like in the first days, the same. I was just like, copying some screens and just making sure, okay, alignment, everything is super perfect. And luckily now Figma have these all tools and, all these reusable components. It's such a time saver. I remember, like No, let's not even talk about
Yeah.
Photoshop, but even 3-4 years ago, there was nothing like that on there. Consistency wise, it's so amazing now. Like all this
Man,
auto layout, right?
many companies try to do. First of all, I remember auto layout. Sketch tried to do it with plugins and stuff, and
Hmm.
everything was so broken. Like you had to update Zeppelin all the time. You had to
Yeah,
update Sketch all the time. You had to pay for all of these tools. You had to update InVision because
oh yeah,
we had like a lot of different tools, and now Figma just like owns all of them. So that
yeah.
not owns, but Figma have all of those features: prototyping instead of InVision, the coding area instead of Zeppelin,
Hmm.
auto layout instead of like an extra plugin for that. Good times. I remember watching Pablo Stanley from Sketch Together YouTube
Oh yeah,
channel. Remember?
yeah.
Such an awesome
I know
guy.
the guy. Yeah, yeah. He's great. He's amazing. Yeah, he wanted to envision. I think for some time he was working with Envision when they were trying to. I think they were. Unfortunately, I liked Envision, but I think that unfortunately kind of failed with their design tool. They released their design tool, and it was kind of
In Vision Studios. So we had like in
yeah,
2017, they were like creating this After Effects video where
right,
like they promised. I remember it was so shiny and nice. We can add this
yeah,
link to the show notes too. Like Envision
yeah,
Studios
yeah,
coming, and they raised $100 million on that specific video, and they never
yeah.
quite delivered. I tried this tool. It was very
Yeah,
bad.
it was so clunky. Yeah, it was. They tried to do too much. That's the problem. Like, you need to do MVP. Do this like it's like Sketch. Why is transition to Sketch? Because it delivered UI designers just what they needed at the moment and to be super efficient. And they tried to package up everything with all these advanced animations, etc. But all these advanced animations is such a corner case, I would say. It's the last thing you do on your UI work, right? And your, design
It's the
work.
fancy shiny stuff. It's the dribble effect, right? It's not like
Yeah,
the what you actually need.
yeah. Like clients doesn't need dribble. They don't need dribble effect, right? Like,
They just need solutions. And I just want to comment on what you said. Like even 3 years ago, like we didn't had what we have today, which is those auto layouts. And many companies like InVision, like Sketch, like many other companies try to solve that design system issue and the reusable components and assets. And I feel like Figma is like the closest way
yeah,
possible right now to build a good design system. Many companies do it right now, which is very efficient. And it's just back to the comment of like master
yeah,
your tool, people. It will help you to be very efficient.
yeah. I have a note on that. I do believe that because Figma has it all and they are in a good position. But I'm a big advocate of designers need to understand at least HTML, CSS, and JavaScript basics. And the true design system is not a design system if it's not interconnected with what developers have. So the
Yeah.
Figma might solve it on design level, but until they solve it with, I don't know, like, I don't know,
Storybook,
people
maybe.
using Storybook or something like that. Yeah, until it is connected. So I would say, what I was doing sometimes, and I was asking developers, they hate me for that sometimes, but I was like saying, hey, just give me your code. I'm going to style it precisely how I want it because I know how to do that because they miss all these little things. So when there is going to be a control from design system, when designer controls eventually how it is displays in the code with all the basic layout rules, etc. I think that's going to be the biggest kind of breakthrough in design system world because until then it's still going to be disconnected. So if something is disconnected, there is a lag, there is like inconsistencies, there is like extra time to educate somebody. There is extra time for designer to check it out, check it, and inspect it. So yeah, that's kind of wild Webflow because if you know at least some HTML and CSS, if you're a designer, you can build like a perfectly nice, visual,
Yeah.
etc. So some connections still need to be done. I don't know how they're gonna solve it though.
I feel like we're going to see some massive change in no code tools in the next few years where designers could be the owners of the visuals of their products without.
Probably.
Yeah, I found myself designing stuff straight into Webflow and without using Figma. But I do like to use Figma to do the draft and wireframe and like
Hmm.
sketch the layout and stuff like that
Yeah.
because you do need to have some kind of for me personally, I know designers that don't do
Hmm.
it, but for me, I do need some like macro overview of the page and the layouts and maybe like switch
Yeah.
positions and
Yeah.
stuff.
Same here. Same here. Yeah, I can't just go there. You still need to, because it gives you a bit more area for experimentation. So mockup's not gonna go away for sure.
I wonder when like people could straight into the product could change the copy and change the design, like instead of like putting it in production. Like I wonder when we're going to cut that friction from like putting stuff from design and writing to developers. But that's a really interesting thought and idea that I think all of us should be thinking about, because it will help us to create better experiences at the end of the day.
Exactly. And that's like kind of what is the great thing about Web4, right? If I have something, I just go there, I change it, and I publish it, and it takes me like 5 minutes to change it, instead of like our app is built like by developers, etc., and I need to wait at least a week for this to get released, and I need to, give them a note or whatever. So that
in a good case, I just sat with one person from like one of the biggest e-commerce stores in Israel. Mm-hmm. And I told her, hey, like this piece of copy, it says share, but when they press it sends people to WhatsApp, which is a messaging platform, in case people are not familiar with it, by Facebook, obviously. And I told her, hey, like you need to write here, share to WhatsApp, or at least put the WhatsApp icon or something like that, so people would know like the context and like where they're heading. And she was like, yeah, we're working with this like outsourced developers company. We have a bank of hours. It will probably take 3 months to change that small piece of copy. It's insane. We can't work like that in 2022. Right?
I mean, still a lot of companies do work like that. I think it's a big problem.
It's like a huge, big company.
Yeah. That's the problem with the big companies. They're slow like turtles now.
Digital transformation is slow with these ones.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, Gene, what other resources do you have here for people that want to get into UX and they just getting started? So obviously UXcel is a really cool resource to get started, and I know that you have a really cool job board as well that you've launched lately, right?
Yeah, we're not like super promoting that job board right now. We kind of have it. We launched it. It's kind of going because that's kind of our messaging, like why you're done, right? Because you want to build your career, you eventually want to get hired. So that's like kind of closing the loop of the.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but it still will take us some time to make like it really, really meaningful. Like we want it to be like really meaningful, because you want to have a lot of insights about the user. A lot of preferences. Want to like have it match precisely, by the job, so not like just random job board. But you need to start with something and just go there, experiment, pick whatever you like, like just focus on it. And then when you expand in your knowledge, you're gonna start to understand what you like the most, right? Do you like UX? Do you like, maybe research? Do you like pure UI, content writing, and all this stuff, right? So luckily, now, there is tons of resources to go and invest. So I would say it's worth investing in certain structured course or bootcamp. So there is a starter bootcamp, starter programs, like completely from zero. I would say, like personally, I would skip this step these days. I would try to go and explore and practice on my own, like, try to get this freelance gig or whatever, kind of understand what is there for me, what kind of I feel passionate about. Because if you get into like a boot camp, pay, a couple $1,000 or whatever, and if you end up not liking it, you kind of then have a sunk effect, of you being into this job and then, to have passion about it. So try to get your passion around the area, because design is quite wide, like buy your own. There is tons of resources out there, all free resources. There is some even free courses.
What would be a tip for getting that real world experience? Like what people can do that is like outside of the box, stuff that they couldn't read in like workbooks. If they right now, okay, so when they did the theory, they exercised, they did practice, they mastered as much as they could the design tool. Obviously, when you work with someone, you get way more advanced experience because you get actual feedback. But which kind of tip would you give to people that took the training, did the learning, and now they're ready to go and they want to find a job?
Yeah, that's a good question. The first job is always hard to find because everybody wants somebody with experience, right?
So hard.
Exactly.
The hardest.
Yes, exactly.
Nobody want to hire you, basically.
Yeah, so I think just be prepared for that. So nobody would want to hire you, and don't get offended by rejections, by ignoring. oftentimes people ignore, not because they ignore, they just don't have, time to answer. They just have a lot of a lot of things going on. But like my advice I would say build and try to do something meaningful and do like quality over quantity. So we got an intern a year and a half ago. He's an amazing guy, and the way how he got into us, he basically analyzed piece of our functionality, sent us report, and said, "Hey guys, this can be improved." Blah blah blah. It wasn't just like, "Hey, you can change this color because this is better." No, I mean it's really he did like a deep analysis. He probably spent a couple hours on that. He sent us this report. We end up connecting with him, and now he works with us as an intern because he's still like in school, etc. for a year and a half because he provided a lot of value for us. A lot of thoughts. He showed his kind of dedication to the and passion to the project. So I would say if you want to get a job, like pick probably the places if ideally you would want to get in and try these approaches. Even if it doesn't work out, you'll have kind of case study which you can showcase later on, right? But most likely,
that's such a good tip.
You can be spotted. You can be spotted. That's that's a real world scenario. Yeah.
I think the tip is fantastic. So that's actually how I found my first job as a UX designer. And what I take from your message right now is think how you can provide value right away.
Yeah.
So if you invest a few hours, if you don't have a job, a few hours is not expensive for you because no one's paying you for those hours. So you can invest them in doing deep analysis that will provide value to a company. Worst case scenario, you learned from it. Best case scenario, the company hired you. 1 year and a half after, you're still working in that company.
Exactly.
So that's how I did it. I reached out to someone in one of our Facebook groups. He was a CEO of a company and he was like, "Hey, I need this feedback on this logo." And I was a graphic designer and I want to go into UX design. And I thought to myself, if I will build a bridge with this guy, maybe I could build this website. So I saw where I can provide value to him.
Yeah.
And I redesigned the logo and sent it over.
Yeah.
It took me a few hours. And then it was like, we don't like it, but let's meet.
Yeah.
And then we've met, and then I was the one designing the website because they didn't have anyone that would do it. And I was there and I was showing up and I was providing value or some kind of, or trying to at least. I had motivation, so they liked it. So I really, really like that tip.
No, I think that's one of the probably most effective ways. But also don't forget, like, it is quantity or quality game, but you still need to, commit to some quantity, right? You still need to do it like 1, 2, 3, 5 times if you need it. And also don't forget about the groundwork, like self-marketing, that's what helps you differentiate. Just, make time to fill in your LinkedIn profile with a nice picture, not the picture from your barbecue party, and all this stuff. Just be professional, fill in your personal info, because like if I get to your CV or LinkedIn, right? Like I want to read about you. I want to read your thoughts, not like, "Hey, I'm amazing UI designer." Okay, that doesn't help, right? So just do the groundwork as well. This is like pretty simple. There is tons and tons of advices.
I agree. And also one more thing, I love this idea of doing the groundwork, improving your LinkedIn profile, making sure that you're visible, making sure that your portfolio is also visible on all of your social media channels. But also find your heroes. That's my last tip for everyone. Try to find someone that you look up to and maybe mimic what they do or reach out to them and see if they could mentor you. Ask for feedback from these people. Try to look up for someone that you could say about that person, okay, this person is a place that I would like to be one day. If they work as like director of UX in Google, maybe look at them. Or if they have like this huge design agency, so maybe look on this person and try to reverse engineer his path and what exactly worked for him. Try to mimic that path as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think I did it. I actually forgot who I was looking up to, but I did it actually. Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, it's changing. Currently, you're looking up for like educational CEOs, and as you said, we're constantly learning, we're constantly evolving. Since you were graphic designing, playing around with Photoshop, you did a brilliant path of like looking up for UX designers that are doing great, and then looking up for founders that are doing great. And I'm also changing my perspectives all the time.
Yeah, you can treat it as like setting milestones, right? You go somewhere on a road
Definitely.
trip, right? You put, the near city, and then you go next. You put another one. You put another one. You always have a goal. Just don't forget to set up this goal. Otherwise, you just drift in the area. I don't like. So yeah, I think it's great advice.
And also don't forget to celebrate your milestones, because that's something that,
Yeah,
we reach those milestones and then we just look on the next one without celebrating it.
yeah, actually,
Celebrate
that's
it. If
good.
you found your first client, celebrate it. If you landed a really cool role, don't look on how tough it's going to be and how challenging, because it is going to be tough and challenging, but celebrate it. Take the time, enjoy it.
Yeah,
It's so important. I always
yeah.
forgot to do that.
100% agree, and 90% I always forgot to do that as well. But it's a great advice for sure.
We have a celebration channel on Slack, and every time we reach a milestone, I just
Mhm.
take a screenshot. Like, we celebrate our student success mostly, so we're like, hey, this guy found a job, or this one found a job, or we reached that amount of listeners for the podcast, or
Yeah, that's
just
good.
like make sure that everybody are aligned to the celebration, basically.
Yeah.
All right, we have to finish, and I want to ask you. Usually, I ask my guests. There's a question I ask all of the guests, and I ask, how do you think we should name this episode? Okay.
Oh wow.
Which is a tough question.
Yeah, it is a tough question. Yeah, UX design career tips, career exploration, thoughts.
UX design career tips, UX design career exploration. I love the word self-taught, or something about, educating yourself.
Life learning, UX path.
Sounds good. I think that the editor could grab.
You are a UX writer. Yeah, I think you'll come up with something amazing.
I'm telling you, I'm just interviewing the most talented people on earth in the field of UX and UX writing. So we decided to do this exercise with all of the guests. But we have also us editors that take what we just talked about and then decide for us. So it's all good.
Yeah, that's a great exercise.
All right, Gene Kamenez. If people want to find you, where would be the best place to reach you?
Yeah, LinkedIn or direct on UXcel. We actually have a connection and messaging in there, but LinkedIn would be the easiest. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, happy to chat with anybody who have any questions, around career, UXL, anything I can be helpful with. And yeah, thanks you all having me today. It was amazing. We shared a lot of great thoughts. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a great pleasure.
Yeah, man, I think it's going to be a banger.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming.
Awesome.
Thank you everyone for joining us for another episode of Writers in Tech. If it's your first episode listening, check maybe another episode. We talked with a lot of amazing people, and check it out. Also follow, subscribe, give us feedback, and we will really appreciate it, so more people could listen to this episode. And if there is one thing that you took from that episode today, I want you to share it on social media and tag Gene and tag me so we could see it. It could be on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, whatever works for you. And that's about it. My name is Yuval, founder of the UX Writing Hub. Check our website. We have a free course as well about UX writing. And I'll see you next time. Bye.